Have a what's
Well, she's going to take it. And then I'm. All right. Turn my microphone back on. All right, we are going to move on to session number 2, revenue projections. We're actually going to start with a revenue projection model. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on our CCOC website under budget development tools. And I recognize that we have some of these tools out there and we've never truly taken the time to sit down and provide you a thorough explanation of how to use those tools. So you may have looked at it and said, I don't know what this means. This is Greek to me, and just moved on. So that's why we're taking the time today to really get into detail on these trainings, on these tools that we have available to help you in your office. And so Susan Sullivan from Citrus County is going to kick us off with the revenue projection tool.
Okay, I'll forget to use it so again. Good morning. My name is Susan. I've been with Clerk Angela Vick for 23 plus years. My first 15 were spent doing the financial statements, the after the fact work. And then she said, we need to get you doing the budget too. You can do it the other 6 months of the year that you're not doing the financials. Sounded logical. I was foolish enough to think that would be great. No, I do love doing the budget, but I tell people in trainings, it never, ever ends. And you're working in 3 years at a time. So are there new people to the budget process here? Or is everyone pretty, okay. You're right, yeah, okay. You know, we're all about the authorized expenditures. We have to stick to that. That's our Bible, but the revenue projections, we live and die by the revenues, especially the operational revenues, which we'll talk about a little bit, but clicker. Really technically deficient.
Yeah, put that mouse. There you go. It's good.
If most of our offices probably do the board side as well, so you know that revenues do not come in consistently month to month. It's like that shark fin with the tax revenues that come in. But we have similar type ebbs and flows in court revenues. And this tool that we're going to use tries to recognize some of those things so that revenues don't come in 1/12 each month, every month. So this is what the thing looks like. And I know it's a little overwhelming at first, but I'm going to explain it to you and it's really simple to use. My clerk likes to know at any given time where we are, what it looks like we're going to wind up at, so that she can make quick decisions. She's that way on everything. So all you have to do is you plug in your historical data in the top 3 rows of that form up here, your total budget, and this averages over the years what those, like period 1, get down here, was 24,706. Of your total budget, it represented 6.72% in that month, in that period. And it does that all the way across, and it does it for each year. And then this is your average of those periods. So it gives you an idea that in period 1, I can expect 7.25% of my total budget to come in that month. So when you're working to develop your 22, 23 budget revenues, talk to your court leadership. They know way more than I do about this part. I have Kathy Davis, which some of you have probably worked with. You can use these historical amounts and trends as a basis, but then talk to your court leadership because they know about legislative changes that are coming. They know more about trends trends in general in the court system. And then you also have to factor in the economic environment changes. COVID for one. We had a worksheet last year that kind of took COVID into consideration, where you could say, well, these are my expected revenues, but I think I'm going to be lower by 30% and still kind of have a projection at the end of the year. We have a new parkway coming through Citrus County. Hopefully our traffic ticket money is going to increase. There's things, one of those we live and die by, are traffic. You guys with interstates are doing great. And then the general health of the economy overall. Last year, we saw much higher court revenues than we expected, even with COVID. So there you go. You enter your original budget for your 21. This is showing 21. And across here, it's going to calculate based on those averages. I'm pointing at my screen. You can see based on these averages, it's going to calculate what it thinks you'll get in period one. And then as the year goes along, you're going to come in here and fill in what you actually got. And this number is going to recalculate your projections based on your averages before and in consideration of what you've already got. Is that making sense? I'm sorry. I'm going too fast. And then you're going to update this formula, which I'll bring the worksheet up in a minute, each month. And if you have updated it correctly, this number, right, I feel like this was pointing at it. The number over there, 1, it's always going to be 1 if you got your formula right. Maybe. There you go. That's always going to update. So all you're going to do when you update the formula is drag it over one more cell. And I'll show you that also. But as you can see, it updated, excuse me. Our original budget was 353.6. Well, with the projections, it was coming in at 507 after 10 periods. The best part, formulas take into account the percentages for each period. A picture is worth 1,000 words to me, especially when I'm trying to present this to all of our leadership and our clerk. That blue dotted line right there, that was my original projection for 21. The green line is what actually happened. It gives us a real nice picture of where we're going and what we're looking at. Now, one other thing that you have to be careful of, this is a tool, and it should never supplant your gut instinct and your experience. Is that right there, that huge number would skew everything for the year if I relied on that for the rest of to help me project the rest of the year. So I needed to adjust for that in my spreadsheet. This is when they were paying off convicted felons who had been released. They were paying off their fines so they could vote. We had a tremendous amount of money come in that period. I think it was $50,000, I think. Compared to our overall norm, that was quite a bit. So you just have to be careful that you're not allowing anomalies to skew your projections. And then I have a projections form that has my original budget, I have the year to date, and then I plug in these projections based off these worksheets that I'll pull up and show you. As you can see, it was perfect for 9:30, my projection. But normally you can see what your excess is going to be over here throughout the year. You have to be careful, of course, during the first 3 months. You know, when you get four months in, it's giving you a much better picture so that you're not skewed by 1 or 2 months that are off. And let me pull up this spreadsheet and show you a better idea what it looks like. So I track more than just court revenues on here. I do our application fees, which is not much for us, but it's our, again, we were a little bit lower. I'm sorry, get this bigger a little bit. Is that any better? Our recording fees are in here with our service charges for operations. Clearly much higher than we thought they would be. Court costs. Blue dotted line is where we thought we would be. That green line, that was very good news for CCOC. They liked seeing that. Again, the filing fees. You can see the dip there we had. Let me get down to recording because a lot of us live and die on recording fees to help us with the operations of the office. Our recording fees came in, one of the months we had was the highest we'd had in 8 or 9 years since with the prior to the financial crisis. Now, let's get up here. Sorry to keep running back and forth on you. I'll show you how to fix that formula. So I plugged in the period 1 data here. So let's say in period 2 that we had 4,000. Oops. Gonna let me. Okay. So now I would come over here, hit F2 and update that. Well, should have been back here, there. Sorry. Basically, you're just going to include the periods that you have actuals through. Just simply drag them over. And you can see based on those two numbers, and I'm anal, so I like to change my format to match so I know that I've got it updated. You can see that we're coming in with a $6,000 positive variance if this trend were to continue. Again, you don't want to rely on this too much in the first 3 months, let's say 4 months. Then you can really start seeing that if the trend is holding, it gives you a good picture of where you're going to be. Gives you a good picture of you can do this based on knowing recording fees are higher, you know your mod trust monies are going to be higher. So it's a simple, I mean, it looks awful, but it's a pretty simple spreadsheet to update. You just copy and paste your data up each year and update it. So, is there more to, is that, any questions on this? I'm not sure yes, sir.
Thank you for doing this. Have people talk about when we started to start, and we would say, "Better be better way to do that." So, how long have you been doing this? And have you gone back and checked to see how good your projection was, and if it was off, what the reason were?
I've been doing this, let's see, I started doing the budget maybe in 16. I did it that first year, and I just keep updating it. Often the budget, the original budget versus what the projection comes out to is significantly different. However, because I'm keep updating this spreadsheet throughout the year, my projections are, as you get closer to the year, much better. So. This one, we've had some, this last year recording fees were 120% higher than our beginning budget versus what we wound up with at the end of the year. Yes, absolutely. And then when Marlene calls me in June and wants to know what our projections are for the remainder of the year, I can tell her easily what I think we're going to have. And when they want the CCOC at the beginning of the year, they want to know what we expect by period. I plug this in and I get an idea to tell her. And by the way, I want to thank Marlene for the many years of assistance and help and patience with dumb questions. So she will answer any questions you have, especially if you're new. She's very happy to help you. If you have any questions on this, email me or just give me a call. I told you it'd be quick. Thank you very much.
Okay, and if you look on our CCOC website, we do have her email address out there. So if you do have questions or if you want to give it a try. We also, in our office, we have an individual that we call our math guru, Johnny Petit. He's got several degrees in math. He's got 1 degree in pure math. I don't know what makes that different than any of the other math, but there you go. And so he does our revenue projections, our analysis. He considers, you know, trends, anomalies like COVID, trend smoothing, just it's crazy month over month, year over year, not just, we don't just take a number and divide it by 12, right? I mean, that's not a true projection. So he has all of this phenomenal, crazy mathematical steps that he does. And so he is working on a massive model. And so this spreadsheet will have 67 tabs, and you can go to your county's tab and you can look at, based on 3 years of actual revenues received, what he thinks your revenue projection for the current fiscal year and for next fiscal year will be. He did not end up giving it to me before we made it here today, but he's promised me I should have it today. And so when I get back into the office, I'll be able to get that loaded for you guys. And if you have any questions, his email is also on our website. If you go to our staff page, he's more than happy to assist. And this is something too, as you're going through revenue projections. I mean, COVID taught us how hard it is to project those revenue dollars coming in. When we don't have a say-so over the cases that come in, the case mix that comes in, which cases actually have dollars associated with them, and then our cases that have no dollars because, they're in areas where, we have indigency filings, all of that detail. This is a tool that can just kind of help us see where the trends are going. It helps us when Jason gets ready to present to the EDR, the Economic and Demographic Research group that does our projections that we base our budget on. The information is very important, and it's important that we try and get those numbers better and better each year. We take the revenue projections that you give us in your initial submission, and those are the numbers that we use compared to your final approved budget to do our funded and depository calculation. And that calculation will hold for the whole year. Three years ago, we had numbers that we knew were significantly off. EDR had estimated a lot higher than the clerks had, and we knew we were going to be sending out money that was going to turn around and come right back to us in 1/12 every month. And so we had this crisscross that just kept happening. And because it's so difficult to go through the budget amendment process with the state to change your numbers, that would have meant, 3 months with not receiving money if you were a funded county. We couldn't afford to do that. So we just had to hold to what we had and then fix it and settle up. So every year, if we can get better and better revenue projections, we have less of that crisscross going back and forth. And so the counties that need the dollars are getting what they need up front. And the other counties that know exactly what they need, they're not sending in enormous amounts in excess back to us. Obviously, we're still going to have that excess. I mean, that's part of our budget model that we are currently operating under. But we'd like to see those dollars stay where they need to stay. We want to see, each county being able to support themselves. And we know that we're going to have some counties that are never going to be in that position just because of their economic situation and all those other factors. But this is why revenue projections are so important. And we really wanted to give a good effort to looking at it.
Does the EDR use what we submit as clerks, our estimates of revenue at all under consideration?
We take that number and use it in what we give them as a final number. So we might not use the exact number, but we might say, okay, that's the number we got from the clerks, but we're also on our end looking at all of these things, and we're seeing the cases come in and we're seeing the trends. And so we're going to go up more, or we're going to go down more. So Jason does use that when we give our final number, but they don't see that as this came from the clerks. They see what Jason gives them.
The reason I ask is that math, I know if I tell you I'm making have less revenue, but have more expenditures, I'll be a funded county and maybe get money as a cushion, even though I'll be giving it back to you. So I wondered if it creates an advantage for my county personally, maybe, but does it negatively affect what EDR is going to fund us or allow us to spend? Excuse me.
I don't, Jason, if Raphael, if you'll give it to Jason, and I'll let him answer that, and then I have another thing to say to that.
They don't, we, Orleans, we
I take this numbers that Johnny gives me, and I take a look at what the counties submit as their revenue projections. And I use that to make the adjustments to what our revenue projection, our CCOC revenue projections are before we give it to EDR. So no, it doesn't, they don't actually see your revenue projections and think that they're projecting too high, based on what you all have submitted. And I want to say in the last couple of years, we've usually been about 2.5%. The revenue projections we get in from the counties are about 2.5% lower than what EDR projects for the CCOC or for the clerk's revenue. And I think that's probably a product of CPAs in the room that are very conservative with the revenues because they don't want to. They don't want to have more expenditures than they have revenue. So I think that's probably the biggest factor in that. And also they're, just some folks may not have the people in order to be doing revenue projections on a very high sophisticated level. And so tools like this, I think, are absolutely wonderful, especially for some of the smaller counties that may not have the staff to really dig in and get to what their revenues are going to be.
And then to the second part, how does it affect the state's impact? If every county was like, okay, I don't want to be a depository county and I want to make sure I'm funded, so I make sure I'm covered and protected, we have to send that information to the state through the Department of Revenue to the governor's office. And then that budget amendment goes on consultation with the House and the Senate. So all involved parties are seeing that information. And they're going to say, okay, here's what you're telling me that you need to send out every quarter, but you don't have the funds coming in. You haven't proved to me that you've had the funds coming in. What are you going to do? You need to go cut budgets. And so that's why it's imperative that we try and keep those numbers as accurate as possible. So if we do get into a situation where the budget committee and the executive council decide we need to go forward and we need to make other steps, that they have the data backing them up when they go before the legislature or the governor's office and saying, like we had a couple of years ago, we're in a situation, we might need a loan. Here's all our data and our information, and we can prove to you why it's a need. So we don't want people going one way or the other in extremes. That we don't want you completely, underestimating and lowballing so low that it hurts everyone else in the state, because it does. Everything that we do as clerks individually in your offices impacts everyone else, because as a collective, that's the numbers that we're sending, to the legislature and the governor's office. So we don't want people underestimating and we don't want them overestimating too high either, because then we're going to anticipate those revenues to come in to help the funded counties, and then it's not going to be there because it was an inflated number.
And that was the roundabout point of my question, is that we need ethically and responsibly, we need to report as accurately as possible for the
Right.
good of all of us as a collective.
Correct. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Hang on, right at the microphone so it can be recorded.
Small county, small. Very small. So have we looked at maybe totally smallest total? Because a lot of our. So could we just do that analysis?
Yes, yeah. So even when we're doing our revenue analysis, say we don't have an analysis for Union or Dixie or Lafayette, it doesn't change our statewide number, because our statewide number is at such a high level that those revenues aren't going to impact. If we try to go in and we don't have a Miami-Dade, that's going to swing our numbers drastically. And so Johnny Petit in our office, he's looking at it at the statewide level more so than the county by county level. We don't get into the county by county level until we're doing that funded depository calculation. So that's where, like I had one county one year, hey, I messed up my revenue calculation and I need to change it by like $2,000. Well, that made an impact for them because their numbers were already so low that 2,000 was a swing that they needed in their favor. So no, it wasn't. But if it was like a Miami-Dade that said, hey, I'm off by $2,000, okay, that's not going to change my numbers that much for Miami-Dade. See, so, yes, that's something that, as we move forward and we start doing a better job of our data collection and our data analysis, that's something that Johnny can look at. But for the most part, we're looking at it at the high statewide. Any other questions? Okay, I am going to bring up the revenue projection form. And I hope everyone got the statewide email I sent out. We have the major forms and instructions have already been posted on our website. Our presentations from today, I won't post them until after we're done. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have any changes or edits to what we were presenting to you. So what you see when you get back to your offices will be what we actually presented on. The revenue projection form, it's the same form that you used when you submitted your original budget with your budget issues at the beginning of the summer. So if you have revenue projections from that time that you are happy with, you can copy and paste the information into the new form and submit that. If you want to say, well, I know that before the December deadline, I'm going to have September and October and possibly November actuals, and I want to put those actuals in and leave the rest of my projection, that's fine too. If you look at the numbers that Johnny produces, if you use the Citrus County revenue projection model and you come up with a completely different number and want to use that for your remaining months, that's great too. The biggest thing that we're looking for when we're doing the technical reviews in our office is that you have information provided. So the first line on line 10, the fines, fees, service charges, and court costs, we're going to be looking to see that there is a number there, that there's a number for every month listed and looking for a total. The line below it is the redirected 10% fines. We are looking for that number. That is something that is projected separately when EDR does our total projection. If you have had a DFS audit recently, you know that DFS is looking for those numbers, especially when they look at your EC report, because if you have any technology that you want to pay for from the 10% dollars, they're looking to make sure that you don't exceed what you've collected. So we're going to look at those projections and look at what you collected and see, if there's anomalies there. We're looking to see that there is a dollar amount entered for every month and for those two lines. The second section is the 2008-111 projections. This one, again, it started in 2008, so we've been doing this one a while. And EDR also projects this category separately. We have broken out some of the items, so driving under the influence, issuance of a summons, and traffic administration fees. And we've had some counties that are still not being able to project those individually. For some, it's just their dollar amount that they collect is so low. It's a lot more work to just get that number. And since it's so low, they just don't break it out. And then we have the all other line 47 additional revenues. So if you can, we want to see those lines all separately. If not, if your fees are lumped together on a particular line, then we want that information provided. The biggest bulk of our technical reviews are for issues that need further explanation and no explanation was provided. So if you can provide that explanation on the front end on the form, that is helpful for us, and that will cut down on how many technical reviews that we have to process and send back for edits. If you provide the explanation in your email when you submit it, it's not going to be recorded. Our emails, while we do keep them and file them, the information that carries forward year to year is what is on the actual forms, because that's the data that gets pulled into the CCOC databases. So we want to make sure that that explanation is in the form, not in the email, and that you do provide it. So if there's, I know there's one county for, I think it was driving under the influence, they maybe only had 2 citations a year. So instead of breaking it out by month, they just picked 2 months and that's where they put it. But they provided me that explanation below. So I understood, okay, you have such a low quantity, you only get about 2 a year. So that's why you just picked 1 month to put it in or whatever. Great. And I didn't have to go back and forth with them because they provided that information up front. Any questions? Okay, and again, I was hoping to have, Johnny's revenues to be able to show you, and since I don't have that, this particular session is gonna end a little early, but we're gonna start the next session earlier than we have on the schedule, because I realize I'm going to need more than just the 1 hour time frame. So if that works for everybody, we're gonna take just a quick break and come back at 9:45 to start the next session. 9:45.